Hello again, J Spot peeps, and welcome back to the J Spot. I'm your host, Mr. J. And for those of you who have subscribed thus far, a hearty and very appreciative shout out to you for taking me across the 700 subscription threshold. I really do appreciate your support. And for those of you who have stopped by for the first time, welcome. And while you're here, make sure if you enjoy this content that you subscribe. Make sure you like the video, share with your family and friends, drop us a comment, and make sure you hit that notification bell to be notified of content uploads going forward. Today, I'm going to be discussing guns in America, particularly as it pertains to young white males and their impact on violence in society. You know, America's marriage to guns and religion, apart from Adam and Eve, was probably the first arranged marriage. And it didn't start even with a kiss or a passing glance. There was no romancing of any kind. There were no prenuptial agreements, no witnesses, and no preacher. And even though you couldn't say it was a shotgun wedding, pardon the pun, there is one thing that we can definitely say, that it definitely was arranged. You see, when President Obama, former President Obama, said some years ago, quote, "Americans cling to guns and religion," unquote, that was no slip of the tongue. He was spot on. He was spot on right, because Americans gained their freedom from the British, conquered the Indians, and captured slaves, all with a gun in their hand and in the name of God. What better union could anyone ask for than one that purports that God commands that a people use firearms to eliminate another race? That is all a part of God's plan. Is it any wonder then that the majority of Americans, the mainstream kind, believe that the right to bear arms is a God-given right, as if God thinks about guns, and that right trumps the sanctity of human life, unless of course it's theirs. Quote, "A man has a right to defend his home," unquote. How many times have you heard that? My question is this: if you have the right to defend your home, and think about mainstream America. When I say mainstream America, I'm talking about white folks, because they're always the ones talking about the right to bear arms and defend their home. But from what I see in this country, most white folks live around white folks. So who are they afraid of? One another? Do they expect someone to invade their homes the way history shows their ancestors invaded the tranquil existence of others? Do these people fear being terrorized, as were blacks, Jews, Catholics, and anyone not like them, by God-fearing members of the KKK and citizen councils of old? Why do they live in such fear of reprisal? If God is married to their guns, then they have no need to worry. Yeah, I know, it's the Muslims and those of Islamic faith. But on the other hand, none of these people were invited to your wedding. However, you have been to a lot of their funerals. Now let's talk for a minute about present day America in the last several years in particular. How people on the right have been espousing this ideology that people on the left are grooming children for whatever. You can name it. Pick a subject. Trans people, the trans community, the LGBTQ community, whatever, grooming them for this. But who grooms more children than the people on the right, especially when it comes to guns? I am a fan of old black and white television, particularly sitcoms such as Leave It to Beaver and Andy Griffith, etc. Mainly those two. And I can point out several examples on those shows where The children have been groomed to worship guns, and not for defense either. In particular, there's a Leave It to Beaver episode where he goes to this all-girls party, and there's a picture of his father trying to get him out of the car. He goes to this all-girls party, and he goes in there, and somehow he escapes into the little girl who lives there, into her father's den, and the father is in there, and he's got this huge collection of guns. Beaver's fascinated by these guns. So he takes one of the guns down and he asks Beaver, would you like to hold this gun? And he says, yeah. He says, well, this gun belonged to Wild Bill Hickok or whoever it was. And he says, you want to hold it? And Bill Beaver says, yeah. And so he begins to tell Beaver the story. He says, yeah, and Beaver says, did he kill anybody with this gun? And the man says, yeah. And I bet you he killed a lot of Indians too. And it just struck me as odd. You're showing this little boy this gun, and you're bragging about how proud you are that you killed someone not like you. Odd. Is that the very definition of grooming, or is it not? And then there's that episode of Andy Griffith titled The Runaway Kid, where this little boy has run away. And in the beginning, you see Opie and two of his pals with their cowboy hats on, standing on the sidewalk with their guns strapped around with their holsters, their toy guns, and they're bored. And even though I don't have the video, I'll tell you what they did. What transpires is they're like, we don't have anything to do. And one of them says, let's go down to the creek and hunt Indians. Again, there they are, hunting someone other than them. And then they decide, well, before we do that, let's pull a prank. And the sheriff's car is parked there. And they said, well, let's take the brake off the car and push it down in front of a fire hydrant as a prank. And therein again, that's that sense of entitlement of being able to commit crimes and call them a prank, or hunt other people not like you and feel as though it's some type of sport. It reminds me of several years ago, down maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago, those boys were burning those churches, black churches down in the South. One of their attorneys gets on television and says it was a prank that got out of hand. It was a prank that got out of hand. And this is one of the things that is so disturbing about that culture. Everything is, we're just trying to have fun. Like the kids that were planting pipe bombs behind 7-Elevens here in Jersey several years ago. That's what they told. That was their explanation for planting pipe bombs. We were just trying to have some fun. Everything is a game. Violence to them is a game. It's a sport. Hunting other people is a sport. Killing and maiming is a sport. Or they're just trying to have fun. But when blacks do it, we are just natural born criminals. And so here we are, we find ourselves in a culture where kids are going into schools and churches and Walmarts and places and grocery stores and just cutting down people with assault rifles like it's nothing. All in the name of sport and having fun. Because you won't tell your children that what they're doing is wrong, because that's what you built your country on. In the name of God, with a gun and Bible in your hand, saying, if you don't give us what we want, in the name of God, we will kill you. So enjoy the poem, A Gun for Christmas. A gun for Christmas. You bought him a gun for Christmas. A simple little toy, granting what seemed the harmless wish of a normal little boy. The gun came with a little roll, the box described as caps. The smoke from it would fill your nose, your ears with a god-awful clap. He'd run around the living room pretending he was a cowboy, The horse he rode was just a broom. You, the Indians, he'd destroy. You beamed with pride to see the fun that Christmas day of thrills. But little did you know your son would one day shoot to kill. He got another gun for his birthday, much bigger than the one before, and all the games he used to play to him became a bore. No longer did imagination satisfy his mind. Fun turned into fascination, and more with time. His next gun came with lock and load, and a barrel with a scope. In the future this event foretold was a future of lost hope. He got this gun as he transitioned from middle to high school, where he lost his alpha position. He went to outcast from he's cool. All the girls that used to think he was the cutest guy around, that fought over him and made the biggest stink, now viewed him as a clown. Even the few male friends he had, who worshipped him as a jock, ignored him in and out of class. His popular status dropped. Out of nowhere his demeanor changes, and strange becomes his clothes. He spends his time at target ranges. He delights at all the holes. When he's not down in the basement, he's locked up in his room, and the smile that used to dawn his face has been replaced by gloom and doom. Then one day you hear the sirens, and your telephone keeps ringing, and the haunting sound of screeching tires says that bad news someone's bringing. The breaking news on the TV screen flashes your son's name, and you're hoping that it's just a dream, but it says that he's to blame. You sit there numb in a state of shock as they count the cut down lives. Please say it's not true. Please say it's not. Oh my God, this can't be. Why? It seems you forgot to tell your son when you bought those guns for him that real life isn't always fun and that you never always win. When he got that gun for Christmas and the one when he turned 12, you had no idea that granting him that wish would one day lead to hell. You bought him a gun for Christmas, just a harmless little toy. Now all you can do is sit and wish that he was still a little boy. Thank you once again, J Spot peeps, for spending some of your valuable time here with me in the J Spot. And while you were here, I hope you enjoyed this content. And if you did, make sure you give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, share this content with your family and friends, hit that notification bell, and make sure you come back to see me, because we have a lot more discovering to do and a lot more purpose to pursue. In the meantime, peace.